We'll now move on to oral questions put by members to ministers. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Premier. Many Nova Scotians were wondering today if the Premier got the message that there is a family doctor crisis in Nova Scotia, Mr. Speaker. Now they know the answer is no, he did not. Mr. Speaker, there is not one red cent in new money in primary health care in the budget today, not one red cent. 100,000 Nova Scotians are without a family doctor, and the Premier is telling them to keep on waiting, Mr. Speaker. So I'd like to ask the Premier, why is he turning his back on Nova Scotians who need a family doctor?
Honourable Premier.
I want to thank the gentleman for the questions. He would know in the budget there's an additional 10 medical seats to Ohio University for residency programs for Canadian-trained doctors. There's an additional, Mr. Speaker, 10 for foreign-trained doctors to earn their Canadian competency here in our province. That'll take our complement up to 56 that will be trained each and every year. We're going to continue to work with those communities to ensure that they have access to family physicians.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, those 10 seats at the Dalhousie Medical School are 6 years away for those 10 doctors if they stay in the province after they graduate. 10 international doctors, Mr. Speaker, that could come quicker, but 100,000 people don't have a family doctor. And the Premier says someday, within the next 6 years, we might have 10 more, Mr. Speaker, if they stay. That is not acceptable. There is a crisis. There are 100,000 people without a doctor, and the Premier has nothing to say to them today, Mr. Speaker. How can he claim that he got the message from the Nova Scotians who were screaming out for help with their family doctors when he has done so little in the budget today to get them the doctor they need?
Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're really proud of the work we've done, Mr. Speaker, with our partners in healthcare. We continue to make sure that we have access to family physicians. We'll continue to recruit them across the country, and pleased with the investment the honourable member made today in adolescent mental health. We'll continue to make those investments to hire more clinicians. The issue around orthopedic surgery, we'll continue to make sure that those Nova Scotians who are on a wait list for too long, Mr. Speaker, hear that the province has heard them. We'll continue to make sure we make those improvements. At the same time, on the campaign trail, I heard from Nova Scotians who want us to continue down the road of making sure we live within our means and make strategic investments in the economy of our province. Why I'm so proud that we'll continue to enhance the stuff we've been doing around fish and aquaculture, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to make sure that we bring back much needed revenue and invest in the services Nova Scotians require.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on his final supplementary.
You know what, Mr. Speaker? Today was a budget. It was just a budget. It was not an action. It was a budget. And Nova Scotians have learned from this government that they can't count on even the budget. The health budget last year was shortchanged by $28 million, Mr. Speaker, in the same year where Nova Scotians are crying out for more doctors. The Premier shortchanged the health budget by $28 million, Mr. Speaker, and Nova Scotians have gone without a doctor. Too many have as a result. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Premier is this: how can they trust him to care about their primary care needs, their family medicine needs, when he shortchanges the health budget, when he says he got the message, and then he comes here and has so little to show for all that effort?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member. This budget has an additional $82 million in it directly in the healthcare budget, Mr. Speaker. Some of these investment of very things the honourable member campaigned for around adolescent mental health. He led a great campaign along with this caucus, ensuring that we continue to focus on mental health issues in the province. We invested in that in this particular budget. We also heard from Nova Scotians who wanted us to continue to grow the economy, at the same time invest in education, where we've been doing so, and to live within our means. And this budget is a reflection of what Nova Scotians voted for, Mr. Speaker, and it's a reflection of the values of Nova Scotians.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
I don't need him to recognize me. Mr. Speaker, the more than 100,000 people of whom the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party has spoken have looked to this day and the tabling of this budget in hopes for an answer to their predicaments. The Physician Resource Plan says we need to hire 107 new doctors a year in order to seriously address the physician shortage. Yet officials from the Department of Health this morning were able to confirm only that as a consequence of this budget, 8 new doctors will be hired this year. So I wish to ask the Premier, does he not feel that when it comes to the doctor shortage, this budget has let an awful lot of people down?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member for his question. As you know, this budget is investment in collaborative care practice across the province that would also provide a collaborative care team that would assist physicians across the province, nurse practitioners, mental health clinicians, family practice nurses, nurse practitioners, all of whom are part of delivering primary care to the citizens of our province. Tell the honourable member that there are 10 medical seats at the Housing University, which will be increased. There's 10 residency seats that will be increased for foreign trained doctors' competency. We also heard from those Nova Scotians, Mr. Speaker, who are requiring on a wait list for orthopedic surgery. This is part of the investment we've made in this particular budget, and we're going to continue to make those strong investments in our economy so that we continue to enhance those programs that Nova Scotians want and expect.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party on his first supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, this morning the Minister of Finance has spoken about the government having listened to and heard the people of the province since this spring. But if there is one thing that members of this House all heard going door to door in the course of the election, surely it was, do something about getting us some doctors. And since this spring, the number of people without a doctor has continued to grow, and Doctors Nova Scotia speaks now of the situation as having reached a tipping point. So I ask the Premier, if he has indeed listened to the people of the province, why has he presented a budget that falls so far short of what would actually be required in order to seriously address the doctor shortage?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for his question. As he would know, Mr. Speaker, in his time on the government side of the House, the short-term fixes haven't worked in this province, Mr. Speaker, and they didn't work when he was in power, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue to make strategic long-term investments so that we continue to enhance the primary care that Nova Scotians expect in their communities, and we will continue to work with Doctors Nova Scotia, all of our sister organizations, to ensure that Nova Scotians get access to primary health care.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party on his final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, amongst those who have looked to this budget with a sense of hope have been many of the people of industrial Cape Breton as they continue to experience repeated closures of the emergency rooms, especially in New Waterford, Glace Bay and at the North Side General. However, they are disappointed today to learn that not a single collaborative emergency centre will open anywhere in the province as a result of this budget. So I ask the Premier, how can he face the people of industrial Cape Breton who he is disappointing so bitterly with this budget?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for the question. As he would know, we continue to ensure that this budget and every budget in the foreseeable future has investments in collaborative care practices. We'll continue to make those investments. We'll ensure we keep the commitment to the people of New Waterford, as we have to other communities across this province. When the honourable member ignored what was going on in Shelburne, our government, we were in power, actually pleading soon to open a collaborative care centre in Shelburne, and there are many of those across the province.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we learned the Premier's price to buy silence from our universities. Acadia gets another $3.5 million outside of the funding formula that all universities agreed to, and Cape Breton University gets $1 million to stop complaining about it. Mr. Speaker, can the Premier explain to this House why Cape Breton University is getting an extra $1 million after being told for 2 years that there was no more money?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member. I want to thank university presidents and university community across the province who have worked with our government since 2013 to ensure that we continue to offer the top quality education they've been known for, at the same time working with them towards economic opportunity through those institutions, through the startup community and the innovation hubs that we've created. The honourable member would know when the former government was in, it actually gave the Acadia University a $3.5 million increase in its grant outside of the funding formula. But we said when we came into power, we would continue that process until we got to a point where we could fiscally adapt it. We knew and we were very clear in 2008 that both CBU and Acadia were impacted in a negative way by the formula. We've adjusted that today. We look forward to the universities coming together to find a new funding formula.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, if that's the case, why are all the other universities, their board chairs, their presidents, shocked and surprised that some universities get extra money and others don't? Mr. Speaker, the government had a funding formula that all the universities agreed to. Out of the blue, Acadia gets more money from this government outside of that formula, and only when Cape Breton University had the courage to publicly complain about it did they suddenly get $1 million to stop complaining, Mr. Speaker? That is no way to run this province. So I would like to ask the Premier, how can he justify randomly giving money to some universities at the expense of others?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member is inaccurate with his statement. Mr. Speaker, as I go back to 2012, Acadia University was receiving funding over and above the formula that was granted by the previous government. We said we would keep that commitment, which we did at that date. When that became a permanent investment, we also told CBU there would be money coming in our budget, and the Minister announced it today.
The Honourable Leader for the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, this budget, like its predecessor this spring, returns just $3.2 million of the $8 million that has been cut from nursing homes in Nova Scotia over the past 2 years. It thereby acknowledges that that $8 million cut had a harmful effect on dietary and programming spending in long-term care facilities. And so I ask the Premier, what possible justification can he offer for failing to return all the money that his government has cut from nursing homes in the last 2 years?
The Honourable Premier.
Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for the question. I want to thank those who work across the province in our nursing homes. The Honourable Member would just attest that we've made investments in this current budget where we've targeted towards food and recreation. Mr. Speaker, that funding is directly targeted towards the services that our seniors require in those nursing homes. We expect that money to go directly to our seniors, Mr. Speaker, and we'll continue if required to make targeted investments in our nursing homes across the province.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, the percentage of the surplus declared today that would have been required to return every single cent that has been taken from nursing homes in the province in the last 2 years is a mere 3.6%. Surely, others would have heard, besides just me during the election, that the last place we should in Nova Scotia be turning to generate a surplus is the budgets that support the diets and the programming and the staffing of the residents of nursing homes. And so I do want to ask the Premier, will he acknowledge that this failure to restore all the monies that had been previously cut from nursing homes has been an error of judgment?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, again, I want to thank the Honourable for the question. Very proud of the fact that we've invested, continuing the food budgets in nursing homes across the province. We invested in recreational services. We've targeted that funding. That money will go directly for the use of seniors. At the same time, the Honourable Member would know that we continue to invest in home care, because one of the things that I heard loud and clear from seniors across this province is they want to remain home as long as possible, and we're ensuring that happens.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the government is trying to put a happy face on today's budget, but Nova Scotians are not buying it. This budget contains the unhappy news that family paychecks have flatlined. That's why income tax revenues are going down, Mr. Speaker. Paying the bills is getting harder for Nova Scotia families. And yet this budget contains $1.6 million to set up a cap-and-trade scheme which will increase the living costs for all Nova Scotians. I'd like to ask the Premier, why is he making it harder for Nova Scotians to get by?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for his question. He knows full well that the cap-and-trade system that Nova Scotia has negotiated will not increase the costs on the Nova Scotians. We believe, and we've said all along, Nova Scotians have paid enough when it comes to power and the investments of this province, and that's why the federal government has recognized the hard work of all Nova Scotians. I would also remind the Honourable Member, this budget is being introduced today as the largest single tax cut in the history of this province, and it's directed towards those who need it the most.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that is the have your cake and eat it too answer that Nova Scotians are not buying. You cannot say the cap and trade won't increase Nova Scotia's living costs and then say it'll do something good for the environment at the same time. It obviously, if it's going to help the environment, is going to increase the living costs of Nova Scotians, and the Premier has chosen to focus in on gasoline prices and home heating fuel costs, Mr. Speaker. That is the problem. This is a budget that claims to be cutting taxes, but stayed silent on the extra taxes that are coming when cap and trade comes in, Mr. Speaker. He's only telling half the story. So I'd like to ask the Premier, has the government done a study on the impact of cap and trade on the Nova Scotia economy? And if so, will he table it so all Nova Scotians can judge for themselves?
The Honourable Premier.
Speaker, I look forward to the debate when it comes to the cap and trade system that'll be in this province, Mr. Speaker, but I do want to tell you this, the negativity that the Leader of the Conservative Party continues to talk in this House. He died on the election campaign, Mr. Speaker, and not only did Nova Scotians not believe him, they believed us.
The Honourable Member for Pictou East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question for the Minister of Finance. Marijuana will be legalized July 1st. Mr. Speaker, today we saw a budget that takes us up to March 31st, not a whole bunch of time between the end of this budget and the legalization of marijuana. And yet, as law enforcement people across the country raise concerns, and including our own here in the province, about how it will be enforced and stuff, they're looking for to know when some drug recognition expert training might be made available to them. So there was nothing in the budget today for dollars for drug recognition expert training. This budget takes us to March 31st. Wonder if the Minister can comment on the plan for training law enforcement, easing their concerns.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member. As the member would know, we are looking at the federal legislation. We've had meetings with our federal counterparts. There are a lot of details that have yet to be worked out. We know that we're not looking at tax dollars. We're looking at the safety of the young people in our province, and so we want to make sure that that is our focus, that when we do a consultation, that we are focusing more on how we can protect and ensure the safety of all Nova Scotians.
The Honourable Member for Pictou East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and that's precisely the point I'm trying to make, is there are a lot of unanswered questions. There are a lot of concerns, and many of those concerns are coming from law enforcement about the protection of all citizens, particularly young. And what they're saying is that people, they need training. They need training, and they need to know that they'll have access to drug recognition experts on staff, presumably hundreds of them across the province. It can cost $17,000 to $20,000 to provide that training. It's real money, Mr. Speaker. It's money that should be allocated in this budget if this government is ready and has a plan for July 1st. And I don't know that they have it. And my question today is, for the Minister, is time's ticking. When is the plan going to be developed and shared with Nova Scotians?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we want to be ready for July 2018. We know that that is the target date for the federal government. We also know that the whole notion of enforcement is something that has to be addressed. The consultation that we will be doing in the province, I believe, will be an opportunity for Nova Scotians to tell us when and how and what they would like to see with respect to our implementation of whatever comes from the federal government.
The Honourable Member for Northside Westmount.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Education. In August, the province committed to $192,000 to boost mental health supports at the Cape Breton Victoria Regional School Board. The cost would cover 2 guidance counsellors and 1 social worker. The school board had asked for more help in the wake of the tragic loss of 3 young lives. What the province had failed to mention was that these 3 positions have previously been slated to be cut by the school board. And I'll table that document, Mr. Speaker. So my question to the minister is, will the minister explain why he didn't tell the whole story when the announcement was made?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, I can't say I fully understand that question. There was allocation decisions that were made by the school boards. They do have very difficult decisions to make when it comes to operational allocations. There was no cuts from the province in terms of their overall budget, but they did have to make the decisions that they made as a result of the choices that were in front of them. So what we did was we did provide them additional funding to have those needed supports, particularly in the wake of some devastating situations that happened in Cape Breton, and I'm also pleased that we're moving forward with an expansion of our Schools Plus program that's providing supports for our children who need mental health supports from one end of the province to the other, along with other items that were in today's budget.
The Honourable Member for Northside Westmount.
Mr. Speaker, the school boards had difficult decisions to make. With no increase in their budget, they had to cut those positions. That announcement was to put those positions back. So basically, they didn't give them any new money to allow for those positions to stay for mental health. Today, all I've seen the ministers do was a renounce of his commitments. Tragedy has struck our island. 3 families lost their children after a long struggle with mental illness. Mental health services in this province are in a crisis. We have heard too many stories from families who are struggling to get the care they need. Excuse me. Dr. Kutcher released 7 recommendations, and the minister said they would immediately implement some of the recommendations. We weren't told which ones were given a timeline. So my question is to the minister, will the minister provide an update on the House and let us know when the students and families at Cape Breton can expect the mental health supports they deserve and not simply reverse the cuts they made?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, I have to be very clear on this. There have never been any cuts to the education system since our government has taken office, which is very different than the previous two governments that we've had in the Conservatives and the NDP, who actually cut funding because enrollment was down. We're the first government that has recognized that just because enrollment is going down in our education system doesn't mean that the needs are going down, Mr. Speaker. So I'm proud to stand behind our record of investment. That said, these are very difficult situations, and as that member can understand, those individual circumstances are complex, and it's not just the education system that needs to be there to respond to them. We are working closely with our partners in health, community services, to make sure that there is a host of proper supports available for people when they need it, Mr. Speaker. And I do want Nova Scotians to know that there are increased investments for mental health supports in today's budget.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, let us recognize together that we face an emergency situation in Nova Scotia. Our poverty rate is not near the middle of the pack in the country. In fact, we face the highest child poverty in Canada anywhere at all. Our rate of food bank usage increasing is not anywhere near the average in Canada. We face the single highest rate of food bank use anywhere in the whole country. Our median household income is the lowest in Canada. We have recently faced spikes in personal insolvencies. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to ask the Premier, does he really feel that he can say to the people of Nova Scotia living in poverty that the very little that he offers in this budget is sufficient or adequate or enough?
The Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the gentleman for the question. As you would know, I'm sure you read the budget and listened to all of the debate that's going on and around and the media outlets. We know we would have invested in a poverty reduction strategy. There's $20 million that's being announced over the life of this government. You would also know today the largest single tax cut in the history of this province is clearly directed towards those Nova Scotians who need it the most. We continue to make the investment in affordable housing to ensure that those Nova Scotians who are spending too much, quite frankly, on shelter can find affordable housing across this province. We know there's more work to do, and we'll continue to work with our sister organizations to ensure that we respond to the needs of all Nova Scotians.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, with every due respect, the number that the budget talks about for this year's allocation relative to poverty reduction is not the $20 million the Premier has spoken of, but $2 million. $2 million. I think about the testimony that was given here to the Standing Committee of this House by the Deputy Minister of Community Services not so long ago, in which it was spoken about how $143 million is the amount that would be needed to actually move everyone in Nova Scotia up to the low income cutoff. And by contrast, when we look at this budget, we see that the increase in income assistance there is zero. Mr. Speaker, does the Premier think it's acceptable for his government with this budget to continue, in fact, condemning thousands of the people of our province to living below the poverty line?
The Honourable Premier.
Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for the question again. I want to tell him that over the life of this government, there's a $20 million invested today announced that will be towards a poverty reduction strategy. Again, I want to remind him that the single largest tax cut in the history of this province is directed towards those Nova Scotians who are required most. But also know those changes mean 60,000 more seniors would not be paying any kind of income tax in the province of Nova Scotia, Mr. Speaker. If we followed this budget today, we would also recognize we increased from 4 to 5 years tuition forgiveness on the Nova Scotia portion loan, which means more young Nova Scotians are leaving university without any debt from the province of Nova Scotia. If he followed the budget today, he would also recognize we invested more money to create directly to employers, to create more job opportunities for young Nova Scotians who are working in our province, Mr. Speaker, he left us quite a hole, but we're digging out of it.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, given the fact that the staff at the Waterville Youth Detention Centre are reported to be terrified at the prospect of getting the young offender who murdered Daniel Pellergan back in that facility, and I'll table that, and given the fact that a number of safety recommendations made after the 2016 riot at Waterville, which was instigated by this offender, have not been completed, recommendations intended to protect both staff and other offenders, will the Minister tell us if those safety recommendations will be completed before that offender is transferred to Waterville?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the question. I think it's important that my colleague has the facts around the recommendations. Mr. Speaker, the assessment that followed the events at Waterville in September of 2016 resulted in 42 categories, 103 recommendations, and to date, 84% of those recommendations are complete. We recognize, Mr. Speaker, the work that's being done is in the best interest and safety of the employees and those who occupy the Waterville facility. We will continue to work with correction services to ensure that the safety of all who find themselves in that environment are of the utmost priority.
The honourable member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, the citizens of the Valley are alarmed and nearly everybody knows someone who works there. If the minister can't get those recommendations 100% done, will the province appeal the ruling to have the offenders sent to Waterville?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's be very clear. The Department of Justice and the province accept the decision of the court. There is a distinct difference, Mr. Speaker, in the custody of young offenders and the custody of adults. My colleagues should know that. We will work, Mr. Speaker, on all of the decisions that we make to ensure the best interests and the public safety and the personal safety of individuals who find themselves in that environment as those who occupy space or those who work in that environment to protect their personal safety.
The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me start off by saying, holy Moses, it's hot in here. This seems to be the session where I get to re-ask my questions of a new Minister of Health, and when it comes to the priorities of Southwest Nova Scotia. I was happy to see in the budget bulletin where it talks about advanced planning, design and construction of satellite dialysis units at hospitals in Bridgewater, Kentville, Digby and Glace Bay, and expand dialysis services in Halifax and Dartmouth. Unfortunately, what is missing in this one is that the community of Barrington Passage in Barrington has been asking for a dialysis unit for many years as well, and yet I don't find them in this list again. So can the Minister explain to me why they were left out once again?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for the question. Clearly, Nova Scotians who require the services of dialysis, it's a very extensive process, takes a lot of time. Mr. Speaker, the areas that he cited there that we've announced in this budget and the work that's ongoing is to improve the access for Nova Scotians to these services, to reduce the travel time for those Nova Scotians. We're working our way through, Mr. Speaker. There are many communities across the province that would like to have this service. This is the list we have available right now. We're continuing to improve the services. Thank you.
The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, then I hope that I can engage the Minister to maybe sit down and chat about this one, where I had the opportunity to speak to your predecessor on this, where we did not get a sufficient answer to it. The people of Barrington Passage from Cape Island, from Shelburne County, have to travel over 100 kilometres to Yarmouth. Maybe to Bridgewater, in order to receive those services 4 times a week in all kinds of weather. There should be an opportunity for them to receive that kind of service in a satellite way in a community like Barrington Passage. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope the Minister can see his way to sit down and talk to the community, talk to me, and maybe come up with a solution for those individuals needing this kind of service.
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and certainly if the member opposite wants to sit down and have a further conversation on behalf of his constituents, happy to do that. But in the meantime, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to highlight that, again, many of those communities, particularly on the list identified there are people that are traveling even further than 100 kilometres, that these investments at the front end are designed to tackle first and foremost, Mr. Speaker. So again, it is a situation we recognize. We want to improve services for people across the province receiving dialysis to reduce the amount of travel time that they have to receive this important service, and that's the work that we're beginning.
The Honourable Member for Pictou West.
Mr. Speaker, Northern Pulp has qualified for a faster environmental assessment for the new water treatment facility that needs to be built by 2020 when Boat Harbour closes. The Liberal government's Department of Environment is giving Northern Pulp a Class 1 environmental assessment. This gives the public only 30 days to comment once the project is formally registered. The other option would have been a Class 2, which would have been more appropriate considering the magnitude of this project. The minister was quoted saying it was automatic to provide a level 1 assessment, that it was a staff level decision. Actually, the regulations clearly stipulate that where there is modification to an existing undertaking, it would be a Class 1, and I will table that. Can the minister please explain what the modifications are to warrant a Class 1, or perhaps he will agree that it's truly a new development and admit that it definitely needs a Class 2 environmental assessment.
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member opposite for the question. As I said, I'm on record saying that it's a modification to an existing undertaking. It was a staff-level decision. Whenever an industrial site, it's an existing industrial site, makes a modification to its effluent treatment facility, that's clearly within the regulations in the Environment Act to be a modification. Therefore, it's a Class 1 environmental assessment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Pictou West.
So, Mr. Speaker, just to be clear, this environmental assessment is happening 8 miles away from where the original treatment facility is. It's a new development. Let's just face the facts here. Our fishing industry is extremely important to sustainable economic growth. We can't underestimate its value in providing good jobs and, more importantly, food security. We even heard the Minister of Finance speak about it in her budget speech. And potentially, the effluent pipe that will be installed by Northern Pulp when the new treatment facility is built will run out into the Northumberland Strait, invading our rich fishing grounds. I would like to know what the minister has done with his federal components as well as his local colleague with fisheries to ensure that measures are taken to not jeopardize our fishing industry in Pictou County.
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through this process, there will be a thorough and rigorous environmental assessment, a Class 1, and as I said, that has been a staff-level decision for
Order,
that.
please.
There is
the Honourable Minister of the Environment has the floor.
There is a 30-day period where there will be public submissions that we'll take very seriously that will help to shape the terms and conditions. Also, we will get feedback from the Department of Fisheries, both provincially and federally, as well as the Department of Environment and Climate Change Canada, and we will make sure that we make that decision based on the science and evidence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, everybody recognizes that education beyond grade 12 is the key for people to improve their financial futures. And yet this important door is not at the moment adequately open to our people, particularly our young people, because at the moment in Nova Scotia, students in Nova Scotia are facing the single fastest rising tuition anywhere in the country. Mr. Speaker, in the midst of this crisis of opportunity, I want to ask, does the Premier not feel it unwise to be bringing forward a budget at this time that fails to invest in lowering tuition fees for the students of our province?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, not only do we lower, Mr. Speaker, for a Nova Scotia student who attains a degree in 5 years, we've actually eliminated the Nova Scotian portion.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, what ought to be eliminated is a government that thinks it is conscionable or consistent with the interests of our province to have average university tuition as students go back to school this fall exceeding $7,500, and to have a situation as we have it at the moment where average student indebtedness on undergraduate graduation is now in excess of $39,000. This budget does expand the terms for potential forgiveness of student debt after the fact, but what it does to remove the roadblock of skyrocketing tuition is exactly nothing. So I wish to ask the Premier, does he not see that the impact of this approach is precisely to pass on increasing amounts of debt to future generations?
The Honourable Premier.
Actually, again, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for the question. As he would know, I'm sure he's read the document, that he would know you complete your degree in 5 years, we eliminate the Nova Scotia portion of your student debt, Mr. Speaker. I want to say it again for the honourable member. We eliminate it completely, Mr. Speaker. Well, also want to remind the honourable member, Mr. Speaker, that there's investments in there to eliminate the fees associated for apprentices who are going back to receive their red seal. A very positive news here across the province for oftentimes, Mr. Speaker, young Nova Scotians in their 20s who are in that stage of continuing to invest their careers. You would know with the investments we made in terms of jobs, keeping people here, Mr. Speaker, it's always a balance. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to say that Nova Scotians and students responded well during the election campaign and returned us here.
The honourable member for Dartmouth East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I indicated in the House that improving access to mental health services must be a priority. The Youth Health Centre at Prince Andrew High School in Dartmouth East has been closed since the beginning of the school year when the health worker accepted a position at another school. Mr. Speaker, this has left the students at PA, as well as the students at all the schools that feed into Prince Andrew without a youth healthcare worker. Mr. Speaker, the staff at the schools told me that they don't expect the health centre to open for at least another month. My question to the minister is this. Following the recent tragedies involving teen suicides, why is this government continuing to allow students to go to school with no access to mental health care? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I do appreciate the question and appreciate the member's passion. This is an area of interest for all of us in this House. We are, in fact, increasing mental health supports from one end of the province to the other through our Schools Plus program. We're also recognizing that mental health just isn't an issue that our teachers and support staff in schools should be solely dealing with, Mr. Speaker. Mental health is an issue that's broader than that, so we are working more closely with our Department of Health colleagues to make sure that all the appropriate services are there. In this particular issue, there's obviously a staffing issue that has been created because of the movement that the member mentioned, and I know that all folks at the board are working very diligently to fill that position.
The honourable member for Dartmouth East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope the minister and I can have a chat about that situation. Mr. Speaker, it would certainly be appreciated. Mr. Speaker, this government has said that all schools in the province would be Schools Plus by the 2019 school year. Mr. Speaker, my question is, why is this government not moving faster to implement a program that we all know has the ability to help our youth that may be experiencing a mental health crisis?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This is in fact a priority for us, as I know it's a priority for the members opposite. We are moving forward with a plan of expansion for mental health supports in our schools, which is important, but also more importantly is recognizing that this just isn't an issue that can be dealt with in our schools. We need to have the proper supports outside and in the appropriate medical areas to come in and provide all the services that these children need, particularly in times of crisis.
The honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question through you is to the Minister of Energy. Last year, Mr. Speaker, my colleague from Sydney River, Mara Lewisburg, asked the then Minister of Transportation about the enormous and unreasonable fees the rail company is trying to charge residents for permission to access their land and their utility line. The Minister agreed that the fees were completely unreasonable and mentioned that they were upward of $20,000. The Minister, who has met with these residents on numerous occasions and promised them he'd solve this problem, told members of the House that he'd be reaching out to the rail company, Genesee, Wyoming. The Minister assured members that he'd report back. So my question through you as Minister of Energy, will he stand up for residents seeking electricity and give a time-bound commitment to follow through on this promise?
The Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I do thank the member for the question. Look, this has been one that many of us, the MLAs from Cape Breton, have been in very detailed involvement with. There's two types of fees. There's the annual crossing fee, then there's developmental fee, which are certainly exorbitant. They are in that range of $20,000. And we could never figure out where exactly they came from. It's not the railway says it's not them, it's the power utility, and the power utility says that it's the railway. So there's a lot of complexities involved with this. As the member would know, we commissioned an independent study by Neil McNeil to figure out exactly who was charging these fees, what they were charging them for. That report is completed. It is with the Minister of Transportation now. I know this has been frustrating for residents, Mr. Speaker, and I truly hope that we will get to the end of this. Thanks.
The Honourable Member for Victoria the Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, last year we gave the Minister a copy of the letter written from the UARB that conferred the residents a right on the issue. A 2011 order in Council and changes to regulations confirms the URAB is correct on the law, and the residents of Cape Breton deserve answers from this government. Resident Ken Jardine told reporters last week, and I quote, "We cannot get electricity. There's no economic development. Politicians came to our meetings and said it was an easy fix, then did nothing." So my question through you is, when will the minister finally deliver on the promises he and his premier have made and fix this problem for the hundreds of impacted property and leaseholders?
The Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We didn't make any promises that we could fix this, and certainly have never suggested that it was an easy one. Again, with the astronomical numbers that are being charged, that's what's unfair and unreasonable for us. It's a very complex situation involving the Act, the UARB, and of course private sector operators. To the members, I know it's been a frustrating journey. I do believe that there will be a significant level of development for those landowners there, but we do have to sort this out. Again, I think that the Neil McNeil report will go a long way in clarifying who exactly is charging these fees. If there's a way to bundle these fees and make the overall cost lower, I think that's the best bet for all of us. We want to see development in Cape Breton. We know the landowners have been through a lot, and again, it truly is my hope that we can continue down this road of diplomatic conversations, looking at this study and finding out exactly once and for all how we solve this problem. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Queens Shelburne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question through you is for the Minister of Health and Wellness. Mr. Speaker, during the election, this government promised to target funding for food budgets at long-term care facilities. Of course, it was the same government that stripped food budgets in the first place, leaving seniors with inadequate service. Nevertheless, I am happy that they may have seen the error of their ways. My question is, will the minister commit to immediately restoring all the food budgets and long-term care facilities?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the member for the question. This please me, the budget that was brought in today, Mr. Speaker, reflects the path that we charted a while ago. It builds upon the budget that was brought in the spring prior to the election, Mr. Speaker. It fulfills our campaign commitments to move forward in these areas, Mr. Speaker, and that includes an increased investment over $1 million, Mr. Speaker, towards long-term care facilities for dedicated food and recreation budgets for our seniors in those facilities, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Queens Shelburne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our parents and grandparents deserve respect as they age. That includes providing enjoyable meals when they live in nursing homes. My question is, does the minister believe seniors in long-term care facilities should simply accept what is put in front of them, or will he make changes to improve their quality of life?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member again for the follow-up question. Mr. Speaker, this decision that we've made when we went through and you saw long-term facilities make changes to their budgets, Mr. Speaker, as part of their operations, Mr. Speaker, we recognize there's a need, Mr. Speaker, and an opportunity to ensure that we target our investments, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that they are provided to ensure that the residents in these facilities receive those supports to which the funding is allocated. So in this case, Mr. Speaker, the increase that we've allocated for is increased towards their dietary food requirements as well as recreation, Mr. Speaker, improving the quality of life for those residents. Thank you.
The Honourable House Leader for the New Democratic Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Finance. In last year's budget, the pension valuation adjustment was estimated to cost the government about $66 million for the fiscal year. However, Mr. Speaker, of course, today we learned that in fact that cost was only $17 million, saving the government close to $49 million, Mr. Speaker. So I asked the minister, why was the pension valuation adjustment so far off in last year's budget?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question. We know that the pension valuation amount was adjusted. It was reflected in the public accounts that were presented and approved by the Auditor General in July, or June or July. And with the cost of the benefits going down, that certainly meant that the cost to government went down, and so we were able to reallocate those dollars to Nova Scotians.
The Honourable House Leader for the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, when the Liberal government came to office, they took a one-time pension valuation adjustment hit that ballooned the deficit at the time by some $319 million. Of course, setting the stage for their austerity agenda and how they approach negotiations. Somehow, prior to the election, this same adjustment supposedly saved the government some $49 million. So I'd like to ask the Minister, if this is just a matter of accounting, how can the government be so lucky?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
You mean with the Minister? Thank you for the question. No, we certainly, as the member would know, have external opinions about the pension valuation amount. Those opinions were given to us. We have to respond and react to those, and those opinions did tell us that the amount that Nova Scotian, that the government would have to pay to support the benefits had decreased. Those adjustments were made. They were all included in the public accounts for last year, again approved by the Auditor General. And so we know that if that's some money that we can no longer have to keep in that account, that we'll put it to good use for Nova Scotians.
The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
Thank you very much. My question through you is to the Minister of EMO. Last night around 2 a.m. a constituent of mine got a visit from the RCMP. Apparently the line, the salty line, or whatever was wrong with it, decided to call 911. And we know what happens when 911 gets called and there's nobody actually on the line. The RCMP actually have to reply. So I'm wondering maybe if the Minister of EMO could maybe look into the issue of how many false calls is 911 getting when it's being blamed on bad infrastructure from Bell Alliance.
The Honourable Minister responsible for the Emergency Measures Organization.
Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for the question. Be more than happy to discuss that particular situation further. EMO is always constantly monitoring the support that we provide to communities across the province, and be more than happy to discuss that specific issue.
The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And when the Bell Line technician did show up at some point today, there was some issue of bad lines and infrastructure problems that it was going to be escalated. But I can also say to the Minister that actually happened to my constituency office about 6 months ago, where on 2 different occasions where we're sitting there talking to constituents, the RCMP show up wondering what's going on. So there is an infrastructure problem going on. I know, it's way too easy. The point is that the RCMP are being called out when they don't need to be, when I'm sure they have more pressing issues to be dealing with, except for broken lines or Bell Alliance issues. So can the Minister maybe look into this issue, and we'll chat about it a little more.
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the member. EMO, we have very strong relationships with both private and public entities, Bell being one of them, and more than happy to discuss this issue further.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Agriculture. As the Minister knows, this spring he shut the border to bees from southern Ontario. However, New Brunswick did not, and now have small hive beetle in 4 locations in New Brunswick, including Aulac. My question for the Minister is, will the Minister close the border to both New Brunswick and southern Ontario bees this year?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much. We're very concerned about the small hive beetle. We put in the most rigid inspection process in the country around small hive beetle. We're monitoring our borders at the present time, and we have a plan in place in case we find them in Nova Scotia.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, as the Minister may well know, the small hive beetle is capable of flying apparently 10 or 15 kilometres, is a very prolific beetle. We know it's in Aulac. We're very concerned about Amherst. I know the Minister has just said that he has a very extensive monitoring plan. Does he have an eradication plan? And when will we find out what exactly that monitoring and eradication plan is?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are presently working on a plan, a long-term plan for the... We're presently working on a plan for eradication of small high beetle in Nova Scotia. We're doing extensive monitoring on the border and in areas around where the small high beetle could potentially fly into Nova Scotia. It's very unfortunate that New Brunswick didn't take the precautions we did for the inspection process, even after I wrote to the minister and asked him to do that. And because of that, we go to New Brunswick now.
The honourable member for Pictou West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Justice. Earlier, my colleague from Kings North referred to an offender from the youth facility in Watervale. My question to the Minister is, after reading all the details around this offender, we know we don't have what we would consider an offender that is in the same realm as most offenders. The IWK actually breached their confidentiality on his file because of how dangerous he is and how premeditated his plans were to kill a youth caseworker. I would like to know if the minister will take a stand and appeal the judge's decision so that we will ensure the security of the employees there as well as the other offenders in that facility.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the question. As I indicated earlier, Mr. Speaker, one of the priorities for the Department of Justice in the province is to ensure the safety
Order,
of both
please. Time allotted for members' questions put to ministers has expired.